I would love if you could compare the moment that we are in right now in 2025 to the early days of the internet. And I'll ask it as a sort of question where it's like AI is to 2025 as the internet is to what year?
Okay, internet history, I guess it was ARPANET and whatnot in the 70s. But the web, kind of, I think of it as born in Mosaic was launched in 93 or so, if I remember correctly, and then Netscape, however many years after that. I think in some ways you can draw parallels. I don't know, you could say with sort of, I don't know, Transformers in 2017, the first inklings of our new kind of language models. But I think it's really different in many ways. I mean, for one thing, the internet was brilliant and enabled many things, but it wasn't like technically revolutionary in the sense, like with the web, Tim Berners-Lee at CERN, they were just organizing the scientists' data and stuff and sharing it. And they did a great job, and it took off as a viral organizational thing, and it's been phenomenal, don't get me wrong. But it wasn't like nobody would have like questioned whether that was physically possible 5 years before. There was no real limitations. In this case, we don't really know what intelligence is. We don't know how far we can take it. I think a lot of people, myself included, are just surprised how quickly and how far it has ramped. So that's just an important distinction. Like, we don't even know what the possible peak is. Like with the internet, you could imagine everybody could communicate at high speed with everybody else. There'd be, every company would have a website, which they do now.
Yeah.
But you could have realistically imagined that in 1990, let's say, or and even there were things before that, like Gopher. Probably dating myself, but there were things before the web that were kind of like that. But yeah, with AI, you don't know where the peak is, or if there's a peak at all. So that's one important difference. The other important difference, and for better or for worse, this has now gained, profound international attention. I mean, the amount of resources and, money and compute and energy that are flowing towards AI is extraordinary. The early days of web, we were a startup. We got a little seed loan, less than $1 million. We were off to the races. I think we got like $10 million in our venture round, and that was that. These days, companies are spending billions and billions of dollars building, the best AI models in the world. And that's a good and bad thing, but it's definitely different.
Yeah.
So I just think it's, in as much as there are parallels, I just think we have no idea where this is going.
So to that end, then, do you believe that AI is fundamentally more of a discovery than an invention? Do you feel like this is some emergent property of the universe and we're just stumbling upon it? Or is this like the ultimate test of human creation?
Well, I mean, I guess both of those things that you said are distinct from what the web might have been. I mean, yeah, I think it's a discovery in the sense like we simply do not know what is the limit to intelligence. There's no law that says, can you be 100 times smarter than Einstein? Can you be a billion times smarter? Can you be a Google times smarter? There's no, I think we have just no idea what the laws governing that are. And so, yeah, I guess you could call it a discovery of sorts. Maybe an analogy is sort of quantum computing, where you don't really know how much computation are you really going to be able to get out of the universe. Kind of the basic laws of quantum mechanics suggests it's extremely high, but you don't know in practice if there are just other limitations you don't know about right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's fascinating. But you ultimately think that AI is a more momentous discovery or invention than the internet.
Yeah, I think the internet was definitely very important, but it was sort of as much a kind of social development, like everybody agreeing to use these protocols and then kind of making their data and systems available for everybody else with, TCP and IP and then, HTML, HTTP, just agreeing on protocols and allowing it to grow and flourish. Maybe akin to how money was an invention thousands of years ago that let people, really trade and stuff. But it's not like, it's not neither money nor the internet are testing the limits of the universe.
But AI is.
But AI is, yeah, because we just, we don't know how intelligent things can be. We don't know, we know some things about the brain. There's maybe, 100 billion neurons, 100 trillion synapses, and they run so fast. But, with our computers, can we, simulate that? Can we go beyond that? And how far and what would that be like?
Yeah.
We just don't know.
I feel like in that way, the question of, how do we approach this? What do we build? Who should work on this? Are all questions that are philosophical just as much as they are, technical or economic.
100%. Yeah. Well, consciousness is another kind of thing that gets brought into it.
Yeah.
The internet didn't raise questions of consciousness, for example. But
Right.
if this AI is smart enough and self-aware enough, does that matter? What does that mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. You started Google famously in a garage in Menlo Park with Larry Page in 1998. You were just two guys trying to build something because you saw an opportunity. Now Google is a $2 trillion company, which I hope I have this right, 180,000 employees? Maybe.
Plus or minus.
Plus or minus.
You track it as well as
I'm sure riding the AI wave, so to speak, with all that infrastructure has many advantages. But I'm curious if there's any part of you that maybe just 1% wishes you were 20 years old again, just graduated from Stanford. It was just two guys in a garage.
Oh, that's a good question. Look, I'm just grateful as a computer scientist to be alive at any age during this time. I think if you were to walk across the street, I don't know, maybe you can talk some folks into letting you do that later, and you see how all of the AI researchers are all gathered kind of around the coffee machine and whatnot, and everybody's excited. It is a very startup-like feel. It's not really a garage, obviously, though technically, by the way, when we started, we had the garage and a couple bedrooms.
Oh, okay,
And
good.
it was sort of like, but we did have the garage, but it wasn't just a garage.
My greatest fear was getting a historical detail wrong, so I'm glad that's done. Now we can...
No, we tell the story kind of like a garage. But there were a couple rooms in addition, which
That's good.
helped a lot.
That's good.
There is a very entrepreneurial sense. I think, given the kinds of compute requirements that are required to compete at the forefront right now, and kind of the amount of science that goes into it, it would be really hard to try to make a lot of headway, at least on the foundation model side, as a couple guys in the garage. Lots of folks in garages can use these models to create new and amazing things. I don't want to discount the possibility that somebody's just going to have some idea that's so brilliant that even in a sort of a couple people in the garage could pull it off. But it seems like the frontier is being pushed by pretty big companies like ours. I think we're now at the frontier. I'm very proud of the progress we've made over the last
Yeah.
year. So honestly, I'm really grateful to be able to be a part of that. So
Yeah.
I don't think I would take that teleportation to my younger self just yet.
Yeah. What is the most sci-fi sounding thing that you actually believe has like a decent chance of becoming real, let's say in the next 10 years?
I think the most exciting will be Gemini making some really substantial contribution to itself in terms of, machine learning idea that it comes up with, maybe implements, and to develop the next version of itself. We already use Gemini a lot during pieces, like some AI researcher will be like, oh, I need to, debug this code for me, or, help me with this math, or something like that as sort of one-offs. But as a sort of really substantive, some kind of new significant breakthrough that the AI itself makes, I think that, to me, that's science fiction, and I think it could well happen.
Yeah. If you had to ballpark guess, when do you think Gemini will create the next version of Gemini?
I like I said, it's already assisting. That's already happening. But from kind of some kind of from scratch sort of rewrite, I don't know. That's a tough question. I don't know how high of a priority that is to some extent, because we sort of can guide it. At what point is it possible? Maybe in 3 years, let's say 3-4 years. I don't know if it would, the version it would make just by itself would be quite as good as itself. But if you think about it with our new video model, the VO3,
Which, by the way, brought me to tears
Oh,
in
really?
the demo area just a few
in a good way, I
hours.
hope.
In a very good way.
Okay, just check.
Yeah. The sound, something about it just came
Yeah,
very
no,
alive
sound
for
is
me.
such a huge deal.
I didn't realize how much that was missing until it was all there, and it just, it hit me like a ton of bricks.
Oh, well, thank you. But, in theory, I guess I've never tried this. But, well, first of all, I don't know if we support this in the user interface, but you don't have to give it a prompt. It will just generate a video. Our user interface might not actually support not having a prompt, but then you would have no idea what it's going to make.
Yeah.
You could just say, make a good video, I guess. That would be sort of the model just by itself going. But generally, I think when it's directed by a person, and presumably that's what you did, you gave it some prompt, some target, you get really good results. So I guess I'm just saying, if Gemini creates the next great version of Gemini, I think for the sort of foreseeable future, it will probably do better if there's a human that sort of guides it, at least at some high level way. It could conceivably someday blank slate, just go to town, do everything without any guidance. But yeah, that's level sci-fi I don't think we've gotten to yet.
Got it. So for the foreseeable future, you do foresee a world in which it's the Google employees helping the AI along to build the next versions of Gemini, the future that we're going to.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I'm curious how much of your time and energy you spend on sort of these the deeper, more meaty philosophical questions of AI versus, I'm sure, all of the technical questions, the practical questions, the business questions. How much of your energy goes towards all of that, given that it is such a, feels like we're discovering some fundamental underlying capability of the universe at the same time as building cool tech?
Yeah. Probably not that much goes to the philosophical questions, just as a practical matter. It's just there's so many technical details you need to get right on the way there.
Yeah.
I'm fretting about our being able to sign up for whatever Ultra and VO3 and all the things that aren't quite working as I'd hoped, and I'm right now hassling the engineers and the product managers about all the little snafus. It's definitely nice to take a step back Some of the philosophical questions do kind of emerge out of the technical details. Like, we have some new model. How are we going to evaluate it? Let's say, like, what does it mean for the model to be good? We have sort of standard benchmarks and things. That at some point, the models tend to get really good at those benchmarks. And every time you need to kind of redesign that, you do take a step back kind of philosophically and try to figure out, what is important. When you have new kinds of AI models, the diffusion model, for example, that you can now play with, text diffusion, that's not like an apples to apples thing. So now we're kind of asking, well, how do we compare a thing that doesn't, go left to right? That's actually kind of spinning the whole thing out at once.
Yeah.
How do we measure that compared to our kind of normal autoregressive models? So a lot of these things bring up some philosophical questions. But you are pretty grounded and nose to the grindstone, no pun intended, answering them.
Yeah. Well, it's rooted in such practicality. It's not theory about what other people are working on when you're actually in the lab building.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Probably it'd be great for me to be able to spend more time on some of the philosophical questions. But there's a lot going on.
There's a lot there.
Yeah.
I don't know how much time we have left, but one question I do want to make sure I get the chance to ask is, what's a question or a topic that you wish people like me, interviewers, ask you more about?
A question or a topic that I wish people would ask me about? Oh my gosh. Okay, I have to formulate this as a question, or I guess I could just sort of answer the question. Maybe that'd be easier. I guess it's this overall idea that people sort of react to, let's say, new AI announcements, whatever. We announced a bunch of things yesterday, and now, what can you do with those things? And there's a bunch of cool stuff you can do with those things. And then there's a bunch of stuff you can't, or it's not quite right. But I think the interesting question is, what are you going to be able to do with kind of those things next generations in 1 year and 2 years? And that brings, all kinds of exciting questions. I mean, language models 2 years ago made so many very embarrassing errors. It was kind of like, oh wow, this thing actually did this correctly, and that's super cool. That's very different than, oh my gosh, I can actually use this as a tool for whatever it is, because if it's, going to be right 20% of the time, I can, post a tweet with it, which is like, wow, that's cool, but I can't actually use it day to day. Nevertheless, when you kind of look at the trend, you probably will be able to use it day to day with reasonable reliability. So I think as people kind of think about where they're going to plug these tools in to whatever it is they're trying to do, you're trying to make a movie.
Yeah.
VO's cool in that it has sound now. Maybe a year ago you've been like, well, it doesn't have sound, it'll be a pain. We've done some work for continuity of characters and things like that, but and we actually have some movies we are making with it, but it's probably still not ideal for making like some kind of 2-hour film.
Sure.
But nevertheless, I think when you look at how far these tools have come in the last couple of years, all of the video models, not just ours, but all of them, and you forecast in a couple more years, boy, you're going to be able to do a lot of really interesting things with them. So
Can you give some examples of that? Because one of the arguments I've heard is like, by far video is the most expensive. If you look at all the different modalities here, video is the most computationally expensive. And what's the practical application? Fun videos on YouTube, you know, AI rot on TikTok. Like, there's a lot of controversy or conversation amongst, you know, folks about why are we investing so much time and energy into doing it, besides the fact that it's really, really cool. Can you share what are some of those other practical applications of these video models?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I mean, I think it's like the difference between a cool toy and sort of a useful tool, you know, sort of a matter of time, and it happens gradually. And, you know, we're trying to aim for the useful tool. We have some film producers that are here. I think Darren Aronofsky might have already spoken to, I don't know if he was on panel or something, but he's making a video. I've a close friend of mine, Dustin, is making a video. But like, you know, some real artists are using these tools. But it's early days. I mean, they're obviously dealing with something that 2 years from now, movie directors will think was kind of a joke. But they're putting up with it to be, you know, on the frontier. And I think these models will be capable of producing really compelling videos. They'll be able to do it, you know, in concert with, you know, human directors, human actors, and so forth.
Yeah.
I think the Aronofsky film has a combination of, like, you know, real life sort of acting combined with AI generation in a pretty cool way. But you know, look, today obviously we have the Industrial Light and Magic, all the, you know, Lucasfilm, you know, they do all the special effects. You know, we already use technology to generate film. This is just sort of a new dimension in that, and obviously early days, and maybe it's not, you know, the best resolution, it's not like the best continuity over a long period of time or whatnot, but I think you'll see all of those things come along. So we're trying to push the envelope so these things become real tools, not just toys.
Yeah. One of the things I always say on my platform is, whatever you think about it today, this is the worst that it will ever look.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly correct.
Okay, so I got the signal for one more question.
All right.
So I'll ask this one on behalf of all of the, you know, the builders out there who are so excited about this moment, but are not a Google employee. They're not working at a frontier lab. Is there any sort of direction that you would point these people into, whether they have a software engineering background or are just simply somebody who understands the depth and the importance of this moment and wants to be involved? Is there a direction that you would point them into to say, start here? Or maybe, is there a direction you would say, don't go in that way, don't waste your time?
Well, there's so many great ideas, so I would be reluctant to stop anybody from doing anything, because you never know.
Yeah.
I think there's actually an increasing amount of really interesting academic work, even, you know, outside of the big labs. And I think it has sort of happened with this advent of reasoning models that happens more in the what we call post-training kind of reinforcement learning step, which is more manageable with the amount of compute resources that lots of academic institutions or small companies have. And there are lots of actually open weight models, including our Gemma models, that you can use to experiment with that. Increasingly, I think you'll see some kinds of reinforcement learning APIs from the top models, so that, you know, you can send us your problems, maybe with correct solutions or graders, and, you know, we can contribute your problems to the mix of, like, if you want the model to be good at that. So I think that kind of thing is coming. I think it's a pretty good time to be able to make an impact without having to train up a foundation model.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it. This
A
is
pleasure.
great.